We've heard the term values and morals. We may have heard people say, I'm looking for someone who has values, or good values, or morals, once again. But what does that mean? I have a couple questions here. For consider the 10 Commandments of the Christian Scriptures. Perhaps we're talking here values or a value system, meaning do's and don'ts, or rather constraints and goals. For instance, take the commandment, thou shalt not kill. And yet, in the same scriptures, it is given examples of great soldiers, and they're venerated as spiritual people. And so they are theoretically or more breaking the commandment to never kill. Does that mean they have no good values? And thus, what does the word values mean? Others say your morals are black and white. They're too strict, or they're too simplistic. And applied then to the commandment, thou shalt never kill, or thou shalt not kill. Does that mean never? Again, under what conditions would we employ killing for self-defense, or claim self-defense in terms of protecting our family? And is that, in fact, a euphemism? So it seems to talk of values, most everyone says, do this or don't do that, except under these conditions when it's okay to do it. And the phrasing being in self-defense, usually. Then you can do whatever you want in self-defense. But what are we claiming to be legitimate as per self-defense? For there are people who have murdered people, go to court and claim they did it in self-defense, and the judge does not buy that, and they go to prison or more. What one person claims thus to themselves or in a court of law to be doing as per breaking a stricture, a strict no-no, a strict value, so to speak, is in the eye of the beholder, perhaps. Some say you're only allowed to defend by breaking a rule, thus, like killing your own body. Others say it's okay for you to do so with your wife in regard to her or your children. What also is a physiological need versus a nice-to-have thing, an entertainment or more. Maybe we're trying to make a distinction then between physiological needs for survival versus escape mechanisms, or what Freud termed defense mechanisms, which don't have anything to do, arguably, with survival, but fear management. But in fact, if you can't manage your fears, can that cause death for you by what some would call flipping out, or psychosis, some might say, or jumping off the bridge, so to speak. Hence, if you don't get your drug of choice, not just your physiological needs met, can that be equivalent to stopping a drug cold turkey like heroin, or even a tranquilizer one is taking, and then possibly dying from going bonkers with anxiety and rage? So, can we not only claim legitimately that we're trying to defend our physiology, our lifespan, our body, but that if we lost lock, stock, and barrel our drugs of choice, which don't contribute necessarily to the bottom line, like food and air and water and sleep, can we still die, and thus these be unmet physiological needs? Because we could go bonkers and become totally enraged if we suddenly lost our drugs of choice, once again, lock, stock, and barrel, cold turkey. For if one goes to a rehab center addicted to heroin or who knows, probably the only thing someone would say you should go cold turkey on is alcohol. And maybe a substitute drug of choice is immediately implemented to replace it. And so, hence some criticisms of AA meetings in the philosophy, some saying, I don't know to what extent, that alcohol is now replaced with new drugs of choice. Can we thus handle life without breaking the rules, so to speak, as per what we claim to be of value? And that this can even encompass breaking the rules, so to speak, to defend what is most comforting to us, not just needful for our physiological needs. For if you take, once again, someone with a heroin addiction and strip them of it, or strip someone even of their denials, they could become so discombobulated that they die by a action not in their best interest, call it suicide, or inflicting harm upon others of great magnitude also. By sudden withdrawal of their defense mechanisms, drugs of choice, if you will, or ultimately something claimed not to be a physiological need, but without it, we may go completely off the wall and do something injurious to ourselves and die, or injure our bodies or minds. And then isn't that impacting on our physiological needs? It's impacting our lifespan for sure. It's not just discomforting, it's a life threat. So it seems to me that part of defending ourselves and what we hold near and dear as to our drugs of choice, our comfortings, our escape mechanisms, our rationalizations, if you will, has to do especially with protecting from going cold turkey on them. For cold turkey, everybody says, can be dangerous to your lifespan, your very life itself, and it is strongly not urged. You're supposed to transition, so to speak, to lesser and lesser drugs of choice, theoretically. So I think when someone is looking for someone of values, they typically are looking for someone with a lower end scale of addictions. And I'm not just talking chemical, but the whole panoply, the whole sphere, like control, like escapism, like status, like conforming. A minimum of this would be called great values, I believe. Even though from time to time we might find it justifiable, at least in our own minds, to break rules, to break our values. But to what extent? To get something strongly comforting, as in, say, heroin versus a cup of tea. Some people might need a cup of tea, others might need something very, very powerful added to the tea. And the bottom line, I believe, is to transition from something that gives quite a wallop to nothing overnight can be quite injurious, if not life-threatening. Hence, again, thoughts, as I have them now, on the concept of values.